What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the new Hulu miniseries Dopesick. This series is created and written by Danny Strong. Now, before we begin, if you like this channel, awesome, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like any of these videos, awesome, hit that like button, as well as comment below any video that you watch, including this one. So, it's been quite a while since I've talked about a TV series that episode by episode. Usually I'll do like this entire season, because you know how Netflix is, they release all of the entire season at once. But Hulu's not like that. Hulu, especially with this miniseries, did release the first 3 episodes at once, but every other episode will be week by week. So it gives me a chance to watch the episode and talk about it and give you my overall score of that episode. And what I'll do is I'll talk each episode one by one, put it into the first 3 episodes will be one video, but I'll put timestamps so you can watch each video after you've watched the actual episode. But as we know, or if you've read anything about this series, Dopesick is about the addiction crisis that was Oxycontin. It was very famous. It became super huge. It got the attention of the government and the DEA. There was a lot of people that went down for it, and it became as bad as heroin, as bad as cocaine, as bad as ecstasy. And so with that said, this series focuses on not only the people that worked for Purdue Pharmaceuticals that caused this incident, but some of the local doctors and town folks, especially in West Virginia, where this series is a lot focused on, who were taking this drug, became addicted, and of course died of it, as we see. So in this series, we're seeing basically a rise of a drug and how complicated it became. And like I said, I'm going to, rate each episode. I'm going to talk a little bit about the episode, kind of like the nuts and bolts about what happened, and my overall thoughts on the episode. So the first episode, which we're going to get into now, is called First Bottle. It's actually written and, like I said, created by Danny Strong, who's known for doing like the Hunger Games and stuff like that. It's actually directed by, the first 2 episodes are directed by Barry Levinson. And basically this episode is the starting point. This is the kind of introduction to this world. We get all the cast of characters, we get their places in the world, we see the moving pieces and parts on a chessboard, and we see several different stories. And of course, the story starts out, we have, of course, Richard, who is played by Stuhlbarg, and he's an individual that actually, if I looked into it correctly, he's the one that actually basically made this product the way it is. And he works for this company, or he owns this company with his family called Purdue Pharmaceuticals. Now, Purdue Pharmaceuticals is a company, does, works on drugs and how to heal people and stuff like that. Well, they developed this drug, this opiate, this Oxycontin, based off another drug they did. And what ends up happening in this first episode is we see Richard kind of becoming a villain in a lot of aspects. He's always being portrayed as a villain, or he is kind of a villain, but we see him starting to slowly push this drug out into the world. He sees that it's going to be something truly special, but he is giving his underlings, and he is forcing his family to kind of see that this drug could be very profitable in a lot of ways, which is what pharmaceutical companies want. Look at McDorman at the moment. So he's involved with that. We see his family, we see all that stuff that's involved with. We see his home life. We see him pushing stuff onto the reps to make them push the drug, but that comes later on the episodes. And so this episode has a kind of a bookend in a lot of ways, or it has a kind of ongoing story where we have a courthouse where we have this character named Rick, who of course is played by Peter Sarsgaard. He's a DEA lawyer. He is interviewing and basically trying to try the case of the opioid crisis, or the Oxycontin crisis. And this is where we're introduced to Michael Keaton's character, Dr. Phoenix. Now, as we learn, Dr. Phoenix was very much involved with selling this drug or getting this drug out to his hometown in West Virginia. And as he says in the episode, I killed a lot of people. And so we shoot back to 1996, and we see that Dr. Phoenix is a very much beloved doctor in this small town of West Virginia. It's a coal mining town, and he has a lot of great people that he talks to and stuff like that. And so as the story plays along, we are introduced to Ray McKinnon. We are introduced to Kaitly Deaver, who played Betsy and Jerry. They are a father-daughter. They work the coal mines, and they're very much a very conservative family. They're very against, they're homophobic. They have a thing where they are very much in the family when it comes to, work and stuff like that. But the problem is there's this character named Grace, who is a lesbian that they truly hate. They think she's taking jobs. But we learn that Kaitly Deaver's character, Betsy, is also a lesbian, and she's hiding it, and she's scared to tell her family because she's, families that are very conservative, very homophobic will, tell her daughter to leave and stuff like that. But she's trying to get out of this town to be with Grace and stuff like that. Well, In the process of everything, she gets hurt and she tries to hide it because she wants to work with the family. She wants to be approved by her dad, and it starts to get worse. And as the story moves along, I'm speeding through this because I don't want to go, full tilt, like hour long, video. Basically what ends up happening is we start to see Richard, the Michael Stuhlbarg character, really start pushing, like I said, the Oxycontin very in its early phases. And we see also another character who's played by the now Adam Warlock from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is William Poulter. He plays a character named Billy, and Billy is an individual who's a rep for Purdue Pharmaceutical. He is the individual that would go out. If you know anybody that works at a doctor's office, or you've worked at a doctor's office, you'll always have reps in to try to push drugs and stuff like that. And he finds himself at Dr. Phoenix's office, ironically, with this drug of Oxycontin. And Dr. Phoenix, of course, is an individual that's so beloved that he's kind of, as most doctors are, very cautious of opioids and, drugs and stuff like that of this particular nature. So he's very cautious, but he takes a sample of it and it becomes very important at the end of this episode. And so we also have this earlier story with Rick, who is the Peter Sarsgaard. We have a new DEA, head of DEA of this particular, agency of this particular area, who's played by Jake McDorman, whose name is John Browning. And they meet a character named Bridget, who of course is played by Rosario Dawson. And this is the early seedling of they start learning about the opiate, the Oxycontin, how this Purdue Pharmaceutical is not on the level. They're a family that's pushing this drug to make a lot of money. We also learned that this character named Curtis actually helped them get the label, certified, and then went work for the company, which is apparently very legal. And it starts to become this kind of small moment where it's going to expand until we see like the courtroom stuff that we see kind of run throughout the episode. But the character of Betsy, who's trying to get out of this town, is having a lot of issues with her back, and she got really hurt. We see Caitlin Deaver's back, and it's a bad situation. Of course, the parents are like praying and stuff like that because they think that the way of healing things is praying, and we all know that this is a kind of a situation going on now. There's a lot of mirroring going on with this series and what is going on with the current pandemic that we have. As the story kind of starts concluding, we basically see Dr. Phoenix give the first dose of this Oxycontin to Caitlin Deaver's Betsy character. She takes it, and we know where this is going to go because at the very beginning of the episode, he says a lot of people in his hometown died, which is not looking good for Betsy's character. So that's pretty much the episode. It's very much an introduction not only to the opioid crisis, to Oxycontin, to all these characters, Richard and Dr. Phoenix and Betsy and Rick and Bridget and stuff like that. But it's an episode that gives us some information about Oxycontin itself. If you don't know anything about it, it shows us what Purdue Pharmaceuticals is and gives us, what it's like to be in a small town in West Virginia, what the life is like, because they're small, minded people, stuff like that. They may not be smart enough to realize what's going on because they have to trust in their doctor. And it's very much a early look into what's going to be a much, much more complicated series as it moves along. And so with that said, this is an episode that I found really fascinating, not only the aspects of the Oxycontin crisis, because I knew a lot about it. It was a major news story when I was in high school and stuff like that, and of course when I was going to college. But it's a story that is actually quite small for something so big, which is really fascinating. And what Barry Levinson is really well known for doing is telling real big stories in real small spaces and real small situations. And I find that fascinating because it makes it for a much easier story to follow. So therefore, we're getting a lot of stories told at once, but we're not being led into confusion. We're not being overwhelmed with everything. We're given just enough information that we know that Purdue Pharmaceuticals is doing something truly dangerous, and the people that are the most susceptible and most victimized are basically led through the Michael Keaton character. And that is what Barry Levinson's strengths are, and especially Danny Strong, who's actually a really well-talented screenwriter, is that ability to connect with you as you watch the story. So this first episode is truly riveting. It's super slick in its direction and its editing and its writing. You know, you have a ton of A-list actors in this series. I think what makes it work is you really feel for not only the DEA, you not only feel for the West Virginia people, but you truly understand how corruptibility, how lying, how money can cause so many greed issues, how it can cause so many problems. You even see infighting in the family that is Richard's family, who are like, we don't think this is going to work. We don't believe in this. Richard has to push him to believe it. And Richard is the true villain of this entire series, because what he's doing is he thinks he's doing something right when he's telling people, oh, this was not addicting, like 0.001%. But what he's doing is he's lying to himself, lying to everyone, and he's causing the first signs of a pandemic. Think of like Outbreak, where the monkey bites the one man, causes a causality effect or whatever, it causes a concussion effect. And it's going to be interesting as this miniseries runs for 8 episodes to see how truly menacing and dark and disturbing and scary and, you know, kind of violent the series is going to get. Because if you look at stuff like Traffic, or you look like stuff like Civil Action or Aaron Brockovich, the big companies like Purdue Pharmaceuticals, like the people in, you know, those other movies, they are there for one thing: money. They're there for one thing: power. They're there for one thing: creating demand. And what this drug did was ruin people. It killed people. And it's very, very scary. This first episode, to me personally, as my review, is more scary and more unnerving than any movie horror film that I've seen in quite a while. It's truly just an amazing thing how evil and uncompromising a human being can be when they have money or passion or power involved. And that's what this entire first episode is about. It's about the little person being screwed over by the big person, as it always is. And we see Billy Cutler, who's the William Poulter character, and how persuasive he is when he's talking to somebody like Dr. Phoenix, who is a local doctor who's very much a popular person. So these people really truly believe in him, and he's going to sell them a drug, as he says in his court testimony, that he's going to sell them this drug and they're going to die, and it ruins him and it ruins his career, and as we're going to see. And I found that fascinating. I think this episode is a little problematic because it's real slick, and what it's trying to do is very Hollywoodized, but I still think it's a series that's going to produce some really interesting and fascinating commentary on, you know, culture, human culture, and human psychology, on the drug epidemic that is going on even today. And for the first episode and what it presents and how it introduces everything, it's an hour and 3 minutes, so it is quite long. I think it does a remarkable job. I think everybody's on their A game. This is a group of actors that took the script and really ran with it. It's really nice to see people like Caitlin Deaver and William Poulter. Of course, Phillipa Sue's in here as Amber, as another rep. She's fun in the couple minutes she's in it. Of course, you can't not talk about like Michael Keaton and Rosario Dawson and Peter Sarsgaard and, you know, Michael Stuhlbarg, who are A-list actors and stuff like that in their own right. So with that said, I think it's a truly A-class first episode. I think it's really impactful, really interesting, really engaging, and it switches between the different areas, the DEA and this pharmaceutical company, and of course the West Virginia people, in pretty nice fashion. You're never, like I said, never lost and never confused about what's going on. So that'll be my episode take on the first episode, First Bottle. Like I said, I have 2 more episodes, so I didn't want to make this too long, but my overall review is fantastic. Great direction from Barry Levinson, great script from Danny Strong. Very intrigued and very interested to see where the series goes. I have not watched the next 2 episodes, but they will be part of this series, so, you know, I will record those, so you'll see that. But as of my score, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. I was just really riveted by it. So with that said, we'll head into episode 2, which is, of course, Breakthrough Plan. Okay, so episode 2 is called Breakthrough Plan, and is once again directed by, of course, Barry Levinson and written by Danny Strong. This episode is the continuation, the kind of next step in the plan of Purdue Pharmaceuticals. We have Richard, who is, of course, you know, the ultimate evil in a lot of aspects. He's trying to find ways to get the concept out there that this drug is not as powerful as morphine, that it's not addictive, and we all know it is. It's very much a highly addictive thing, much more than morphine. Even they have a medical expert that is being interviewed by Rick and the DEA about how powerful this thing is, and the medical expert says it's one of the most powerful drugs on the market. It really is. And there's a little bit of stuff about, Richard and his father and how they're worried about this $40 million he spent could sink the company, which is what the medical expert talks about. There's a really interesting kind of talk with his father about how his father believes Richard is Icarus, and Icarus, of course, is known for flying too close to the sun, which is a metaphor or a concept that you're getting too close to failing. But as we see, Dr. Phoenix, the Michael Keaton character, is very much starting to get on board with this drug, with this concept of this Oxycontin. And the problem is the FDA approved of this Oxycontin is basically a lie, because the Betsy character is finding that the drug is not lasting the 12 hours that's been, what they've been scamming people with. So they decide that they're going to come up with a new plan. And this is when it becomes really messed up, because we have, of course, a thing called breakthrough pain. Now, what is breakthrough pain, you say? Well, one, it's a lie. It's not real. But they claim breakthrough pain, according to pain doctors, is this form of pain that causes people hurt. It's it's basically a way for them to scam doctors into believing that they should up the dose by double. So here we have not only a pandemic starting, but we have a addiction crisis starting to form in the fake line that is Purdue Pharmaceuticals. And this is, of course, being hawked by people like Billy, the William Poulter character, who somehow has way more power over Phoenix's mind and logic. I started to question what Phoenix is doing. I guess because he's come from a small town, and he's a guy who lost his wife to cancer, which is a very big sticking point in this episode, that he is finding this guy very convincing and very friendly. So the Billy character offers him a trip to Scottsdale, Arizona, to attend a pharmaceutical convention for Oxycontin, which he's very apprehensive to. He's like, isn't that illegal? And of course, Billy's like, no, we do this stuff all the time. You see how this is going. So with that said, Dr. Phoenix goes to the conference, or whatever you want to call it, the Oxycontin conference. And Billy is very persuasive to, of course, Dr. Phoenix. He introduces him to this other doctor they pulled from Johnson & Johnson. And he is basically coerced into possibly being a speaker, because he goes up on stage and he tells a story about how his people in West Virginia, they are the lifeblood of America. The reason the lights are on in this conference center is because of people like them, which is true. And basically this pharmaceutical company is leaning on his heartstrings. And Billy's like, well, my father had cancer, blah blah blah. And it's very much a ploy to sell more drugs, and it's really depressing, because this is how the system works. And it's very bothersome. This whole episode is fantastic, but it was just like, oh my god, it's just one terrifying nature after another. We're watching this doctor who's very beloved basically corrupt his own people without realizing what he's doing, because he's seeing his people getting better. They seem to not have injuries. But as we're going to see, and then we see through this episode, Betsy, who is the main focus on what this drug is doing, is not only taking the double dosage, but she's starting to become what they call immune to it, very much able to take the dosage and still have the pain. Addiction, as they call it. And she also does come out to her mother, because she's a lesbian, and her mother doesn't take it very well, unfortunately. She's like, I'm sorry, did you say something? And this is when of course, Betsy's like, I need to go with Grace and stuff like that. And we see her becoming addicted to Oxycontin. She takes more and more pills. She's getting sick from the pills. She doesn't look good. She actually, in this episode, looks 10 times worse than she did in the last episode, which I don't know how long this takes place after the last episode, but we're starting to see the downfall of this drug at a very quick pace. And we see the evil on Purdue Pharmaceuticals with Richard, who is told that, about how this drug is not as effective as they think it is. But the guy who's working with him is like, you know what, I'm not going to say anything. And Richard's like, yeah, I'm not going to say anything either. We're going to sweep this under the rug. And I'm like, oh my God. So we have that storyline running. And then we get, of course, the DEA stuff. We start learning about the DEA, kind of exploring into the video they find that has people talking about pain issues, about the medicine treating them pain. And it's supposed to be an Oxycontin video, but they never say Oxycontin. And so when they're interviewing the people, we learn, as we do, kind of like wagging the dog in a lot of scenarios, they're faking the videos. They're having people go on there, not really explaining to them what they're actually talking about, just talking about medical pain and stuff like that. And they're adding in later on title cards that say Oxycontin. So it's a fake video. It's like when you watch those videos of people winning, I won millions of dollars, or my lawyer helped me. It's that type of video. It's a fakely drawn video to scam people into basically giving their money and using a drug to make more rich people more rich, I guess you could say. And you see the sad stories that start coming out. We have this woman, I think it's Rebecca or Rachel or some of that nature. She's an African-American individual. She's an individual that is very important to this episode, very important to what exactly the DEA's story needs to be, where we have Rick and his friend, or his other lawyer person, I think Rob or something like that, who she talks about how she became addicted to Oxycontin, because remember, the stuff that Michael Keaton is in is dealing in 96. The stuff that Bridget is in is like 2003 and 2001. That's where DEA stuff and stuff like that. So it jumps back and forth a lot in time. But she tells the story about how, she became addicted and she had to wean herself off. And then she starts talking about how, these addictions, like the crisis of the crack epidemic and stuff like that. This is what Bridget talks to Lucas, which is a young kid that she knows. And they start talking about it. And it's a crazy thing to think about, because the drug was pushed as a non-addictive thing. It became extremely addictive, and you start learning about overdoses in this episode. You start learning about people that wean themselves off the drug, and you start learning about how effective a drug company can be when put in the right scenario, telling the right lies, and allowing people like Billy, the William Poulter character, to push those lies. And we see it starting to spiral out of control. So, like, for instance, when Bridget is officially done with her, divorce that she's going through with this Rosario Dawson character, she, in essence, finds this woman being mugged by this kid who she realizes is somebody she knows is named Lucas. She starts talking to him, like I said, about the crack epidemic. And then she finds out, of course, that Lucas is high on Oxycontin. And we find out that half the school is high on Oxycontin, the school he goes to. And it's pretty crazy. Like, this episode just got really dark. I mean, it was already dark to begin with, but this episode went truly dark. And makes me, wonder, how are they going to continue this? Like, how much deeper is this going to go? Are we going to start seeing people in the episode, famous, like the actual cast, start dying off? Like Betsy, is she going to die off in the next couple episodes? Are we going to see her have a breakthrough where she's able to heal herself? It's going to be really, really interesting. It's a pretty impactful, pretty in your face episode about how the government and the pharmaceutical work closely together, and how the government were hired. Some of the government officials were hired to the people they were investigating. How corrupt it is. How money swings all this way, because they're always spending money on these parties. There's even a thing where Richard makes a joke, well, we should spend more money if we're having people that were selling these drugs. I found it riveting. I think this is a very riveting series after only 2 episodes. And I think watching everybody on play is absolutely incredible to watch. This is a series where the Amber character, the Phillipa Sue, congratulates William Poulter's Billy character because he lied on stage. And she's like, I'm going to have sex with you, and so on and so forth. And because he lied to get this drug push, she's a very terrible Amber's Phillipa Sue does an amazing job, but she is an evil person, and she's corrupting Billy, who seems like he's starting to have a little bit of a conscience, but he still is so stupid enough to do what he's doing, and he's willing to corrupt people. But just watching, like I said, watching Betsy and watching this woman tell the DEA about it, and then we of course have one of the main characters that's the DEA is having cancer issues, which is, I think you could have done without that, but whatever. It's to fill in the hour and 2-minute time slot. So with that said, that's gonna be my take on episode 2. It's a very in your face, like I said, episode. It deals with a lot of hard subject matter stuff. It's very much, showing us what the effects of this drug will do, showing us the effects of what the companies, when they are persuasive, what they can do. And it shows you what would happen, for instance, a doctor who is very susceptible to taking drugs and money and stuff like that, what they're willing to do and not care about their patients. So with that said, it's another 9 out of 10. Like I said, these episodes are a little longer than they should be, but the message gets through. I think Danny Strong has created a very interesting and compelling series. And this is, I think, the last episode directed by Barry Levinson for this series. So I think he's done an amazing job of giving us the look and feel of the series, which is, like I said, very slick in nature, but still feels very down to earth with what it's trying to do. So, yeah, with that said, that is my take on episode 2, Breakthrough Plan, which I give out a 9 out of 10. And we'll talk about the last episode that premiered this week. And so here we are. We are at the last episode of this week, which is exactly it is and what it's doing. And he says, oh, I'm at like a level 5. And he's like, okay, doctor's like, okay, I'm going to prescribe 20 milligrams of Oxycontin. And what's crazy about it is, Phoenix is like, well, I only usually start people at 10. Well, the doctor, being the doctor and who he is, how he's been deceived and so on and so forth, he basically says, oh, this is what we do, so on and so forth. And literally we see the pill as the episode ends. And that's what the drug company is doing, and what we learn about what they're doing is absolutely insane. It's bonkers and crazy. And it's funny how there's a lot of injury in this episode. There's a lot of people people very important to the episode or important to the series, and we're starting to see the effects of what the industry is doing to people prescribing pain medication, stuff like that. And then we have Bridget's character, who is an individual who is working for the DEA and the drug division or whatever, and she talks to the doctor or the pharmaceutical person of the break-in that we saw in the beginning of the episode, and she starts asking him questions about what exactly is going on, why they keep pushing this drug, if it's causing addiction. We're seeing people outside the pharmacy, similar to when people were lining up for food and stuff like that. And she basically learns that these reps that, like Amber and Billy, are threatening these doctors, these pharmaceutical reps, with lawsuits if they don't push Oxycontin. So these doctors are scared, so they're doing, exactly that. So the doctor, she's like, who is it that's doing this? And this is when we have Amber's character, who's kind of, been a smaller character throughout the series. And she basically says that these people are low class, people are they're the, mice in the maze. They're the ones that you sell these things to because they're the ones stupid and minded to buy them. And you see her mentality. You see these reps' mentality that they don't care about anybody else. They care about trips to Bermuda, which becomes important in this episode. They terrible individuals. They're the ones that you end up hearing about. They're just awful, awful people. It's crazy. She goes to the head of her department and says these people are like the cartel. She actually gets promoted to the diversions division, which I'm assuming is going to have some effect later on. And yeah, that's this whole episodes in a nutshell. Then we have all the Richard stuff, who is trying very hard to push into Germany, and his brother's like, why are you trying so hard to push into Germany with all the restrictive laws, and how you even imagine that you're going to try and push this as a recreational drug, as a unfiltered drug. And his logic and reasoning, while kind of smart, is very dangerous, because he's like, if we can push into Germany with their major restrictions and laws and the fact that they're very against opioids, and we can actually infiltrate that market, then we can get anywhere. You start one place and everything else tumbles. And to watch a guy like this really just kind of in a very dangerous situation territory, like an evil mastermind, pushing a drug that's obviously addictive, even though they claim it's not addictive, that's a very dangerous thing. And that's why this opioid / Oxycontin crisis happened, because you have people like Purdue Pharmaceuticals pushing a drug that they knew was addictive and ends up killing people, and it caused an epidemic. It caused a situational problem. And after the third episode, we finally see what exactly it's like for a company like a drug company. And you see it on stuff like The Insider or Aaron Brockovich. These industries, left unchecked, will do some dangerous things, and that's exactly what's happening here. And it's crazy. I'm interested to see what Phoenix is going to do in the next episode. I'm interested to see how Betsy's going to be handled. I'm interested to see what it's going to be like for Richard and Randy, or Rick and Randy, to go through all this paperwork. It's just an amazing start to a series for first 3 episodes of premiere, and the dangerous nature, the dangerous kind of scheming that's going on. Watching everything unfold, and just how it plays out, how easy it was for Purdue Pharmaceuticals to do what they did, how they were left unchecked for 2 to 3 years before people started noticing, how it just completely became such a huge problem. It's scary, and that's what the show does effective. Everybody in this episode, once again, is just effective at displaying exactly what the problem is. And I question some of the stuff, like the story with Randy and his cancer. I question some of the stuff with Betsy, but it's actually quite important to the story, with the simple fact that this drug did this, is trying to do this to this person, this drug is trying to do this to this person, and you have the evil entity that produced pharmaceuticals trying to push it and become that, you know, famous corporation that made billions off people suffering. So, but in the end, that is the third episode, the fifth vital sign. That is in a nutshell. Like I said, once again, a fantastic episode. 9 out of 10. It seems like this is going to be a very well put together series. As like I said, I'm interested to see how the landing will stick at the very last episode. But as of right now, everything works. Everything is going according to plan, and it's very disgusting to watch. But that's effective television. That's when it works. And this is not supposed to be an easy show. If I had any qualms about at least the first 3 episodes, I wish there was a little bit more about the epidemic and how the people are, you know, dealing with it on a world, like a nationwide level. But having kind of a lower, you know, just dealing with like a couple people who are dealing with it makes it much easier to watch. So I think it works. So with that said, 9 out of 10. But that's the my review and kind of explanation of the third episode of Dopesick, which is the fifth vital sign. And yeah, that is my take on the first 3 episodes of Dopesick. 9 out of 10 so far, so that's pretty impressive. But yeah, that'll do it. That'll be my take. Thank you so much for watching. Comments below, what is your overall opinion of these first 3 episodes? What is your feeling on how this series is going? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Are you hooked like I am? You know, what is your overall opinion, I guess I could say. So with that said, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming in next. And yeah, if you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button, and we'll see you on the next episode of Dopesick. Guys, see you later.